Hey there everybody, welcome back. In case you didn't watch the last video, we're talking about Partly Cloudy. I'm your host Lillian Holman. I do recommend you go watch the last video just for context, but all are welcome in whatever order you choose to watch these. So now we're going to talk about the first act of the film, which is an introduction to the world and the main protagonists. And how that world supports the emotional backbone of the film. So, I talked a lot about the 3D last video, and that comes into play immediately because the first shot depicts storks flying through the sky delivering baby animals to the new mothers. And it makes basic use of our love for children and bright colors and everything happy and sweet and innocent, just like Tin Toy did and just like Luxo Jr. did. And in terms of cinema, it is all one sweeping take, and so that gives us time to revel in the various visual pleasures given to us. And there is the aforementioned flying effect, along with a pastel color palette that goes with the early morning setting. And that's important to note. Colors are going to be really important in Partly Cloudy. They are going to shift with the time of day and the tone of the moment, which is something you see in the features and the other shorts as well, but it's a really gorgeous example of that. And meanwhile, along with the visuals, you get the score to accompany these changes, and the score was written by Michael Giacchino, who is a brilliant composer used frequently by Pixar, and you can also see him on a variety of other big blockbusters. He's really talented, and he's working hard here to establish a tone and an atmosphere that goes with the colors and goes with the content. So at this point, the music is jaunty and upbeat to match the joy of the gifting of the babies, along with sweeping string sections to match the flying of the storks. And so it's really working to tell the story as much as the visuals does, and this is our kind of grand introduction to Giacchino. And so meanwhile, if you are not totally enamored by the score and just want to listen to that, which is totally understandable, there are plenty of adorable animals, and since it's only the first minute, the film can really afford to bask in its sweetness. It doesn't need to temper it right now, and it really places us in a benign mindset, kind of rooted in our kind of warmest and sweetest core. And ironically, there's a thunderstorm going on right now while we are talking about Partly Cloudy, so just the world is lining up correctly for me right now. But like I said, we are getting put in this really nice mindset that'll prepare us to root and care for the innocent, which will be huge later on, and that'll make a lot more sense after the main storyline gets introduced. And so ultimately the world Partly Cloudy takes place in is an innocent one, and this opening shot really establishes that setting. So, content-wise, the shot also attempts to answer the question as to where babies come from, but they use the classic fairy tale explanation instead of the not kid-friendly one. Like I said, it's partly inspired by the opening to Disney's Dumbo, but just like Tin Toy, both films create an alternate reality that, well, I guess in this case, all three films, Tin Toy, Dumbo, and Partly Cloudy, all work to create an alternate reality that answers some of the unanswered questions of our reality. Of course, as adults, we know the answers to these questions, but kids don't. And this is a very sweet and creative explanation to it. And the Pixar twist to the stork myth, however, is that the clouds make the babies. That's not Dumbo, that's all new. And this introduction is delayed in order to keep the world's entrance dramatic, and until we've had some time to kind of enjoy the flight of the storks and the warm and fuzzy mindset. They withhold that information until just the right moment to give it its due attention. So when they decide they're ready, though, the stork and the camera following the stork flies through a cloud, so we get this break in the visuals, to this other world, which is full of happy clouds making cute animal babies. It's very fluffy and bright, and they're making really cute little animals. But more importantly, it takes the time to set up the physics and the rules of the world, because we see how clouds make babies and how they inject them with lightning to bring them to life, and that's going to be very important later on when we get introduced to our protagonists and their plight. And so after they come to life, the clouds bundle the babies up and the storks take them away. It also has the first brief comic interlude, because the happy cloud makes a football and a football helmet for a crying human baby. It's very sweet. The baby cries, he makes the football, and everything's okay. But what's really cute and funny is that the helmet is way too big. So not dark humor, possibly the most innocent humor you can think of. And the only reason I note this is because the humor later is much darker. But it does establish the tone of the film as comedic, along with being a film about heart, so it's not going to go full sentimental. There's going to be comedy, and that's from this moment. But it's also, it's good to remember, and it's a subtle little foreshadowing moment, because what the audience does not know is that the filmmakers are planting the solution for the film's major conflict in that one brief moment. So while we are laughing at the cute baby, we are also taking note, even if we don't realize it, of the football helmet and pads, which will become a big part of the film later on. But with all that established, there's one question that is yet to be answered, and it is the question of who makes the babies that are not as cute. And that might not have occurred to you, but it occurred to the Pixar staff, and that's what makes them fantastic. So, the answer is the storm cloud, which is one of our two protagonists. According to the film's commentary, this particular storm cloud is named Gus. He is the cloud who makes the predatory animals babies, since they cannot all be puppies and kittens. So this is where you get the lions and tigers and bears, oh my. But fittingly, Gus's introduction is also the first cut in the film. So we get this snap to attention with the cut, so we know it's notable. But that being said, the colors don't change. Yet the music gets a little quieter and slower. It's all designed to show that Gus is part of this world, but he's notable. And so the music cues us in, and the editing cues us in. Yet, that being said, though, like, the colors not really changing. It's still happy music, but it has this slight hint of a mournful tone based off of the change in speed, which is hard to notice, but is important to kind of interpret subconsciously, because Gus's story will ultimately be kind of sad. So this is Giacchino's way of cluing us in on that, even if we don't realize it. And it also is justified in the moment, because Gus is actually physically separated from the happy clouds, and he's living underneath them. So, other than the music, the first indication that this is a sad arrangement for him is that he sighs slightly when he looks at the happy clouds before turning and working extra hard at his cloud baby. So he cares about what he is doing. He is an outsider who is doing his best to fit in. And it's just an important difference, because the happy clouds are kind of carefree and they don't put a lot of effort into it because their life is so good and they don't want anything to change. But Gus instead puts a lot more effort in, and he cares a lot more. And we see this because his tongue sticks out, and he has to work to achieve the same sort of perfection. And so it's this kind of, we identify with him as a hard worker, and that he's an underdog. It's just, these are all little subtle things to get us on Gus's side, and to not only show that he's different, but he's different in appealing ways. He works hard and has to work hard. And his purpose is revealed when he transforms a cloud into an alligator baby. That's the first predatory baby we get introduced to, and it bites his finger. But this is an amazing moment, because he doesn't react in anger. Instead, he laughs and shakes his finger at the baby like a loving parent. He reminds me of Hagrid if you've read Harry Potter. This kind of love of everything, including the slightly more harmful animals. And so he just has Gus and Hagrid, but let's focus on Gus. This is what we're talking about right now. Is a kind and gentle soul. He loves even the most unlovable, and this harkens back to that core idea I mentioned in the previous video, that every creature is deserving of love. And Gus understands the concept, and when it is revealed that his own position of being loved is insecure, we will hopefully respond to him the same way he responds to this alligator. Because while Gus is not predatory in any way, we need to, because he's an outsider like these predatory animals, we will end up having to be the ones who love him as much as he loves the predatory animals. So the introduction is immediately followed by the introduction of the stork protagonist, our other main protagonist. And if you listen to the commentary, he is appropriately named Peck. And there's a slight change to the music here, giving Peck a theme, which is key, because he has a lot more action. Gus stays in one place. Peck moves in and out, so this theme kind of indicates his presence and his movements. But it still sounds like the previous score, and more importantly, his entrance speeds the music up a bit because Gus gets excited to see him, and his mood is elevated, and so that's reflected in the music. Kind of like Luxo's when Luxo comes back in, he brings energy and joy into the frame, so does Peck. And also like the jackalope in Bounding. But it's just a little more subtle than those two examples. He is distinguished from the other storks. Again, we are dealing with the different here. The world we introduced to before was pretty uniform. Gus and Peck and the animals they create are different. But Peck's distinguishing feature is he looks a lot more exhausted, and his feathers are all kind of messed up when he salutes Gus. But that being said, even his condition, he greets Gus with a smile, and so right away we know two things. Peck is a trooper. He is willing to fight through pain and fatigue and all that, and also that Gus and Peck are friends, because Gus greets him with excitement and a big hug, and Peck reciprocates the affection with a peck on the nose. It's a very sweet moment, and it's an important detail because in literally less than 10 seconds, the two protagonists' friendships is established. This is not a film of establishing a relationship like Presto. It is a film about maintaining a pre-existing one. And so they use this moment as a tender moment and as a shortcut to expressing the love between the two creatures. So while Gus may be isolated from the other clouds, he has Peck, his co-worker, and most importantly, his friend. And with that in mind, we're rooting for Gus, and we're rooting for this friendship. And it is also apparent that Peck loves Gus, which is a key detail to know, because we then know why he's ultimately putting up with the physical damage caused to him by transporting all the dangerous baby animals. So this is a really lovely scene, but it's also an important scene, like I said, not only because it establishes that friendship, but it also establishes the stakes and the substance of the conflict to come. Peck has an unavoidably painful job that tests his patience, but he also has a friend in Gus who does not have a choice in the babies he creates, but he also loves the babies he creates, and seeing as Peck is Gus's only friend, Peck cannot quit without hurting him, and this will be the problem that escalates as the film progresses. But that is a lovely breaking point for us here, so go take a breather and come back, and we'll talk about the conflict, which is a lot less sweet and cuddly, but hang in there, it all turns out okay.